All right, everyone. So today I'm gonna show you, or actually this video, I'm gonna show you how to import some data sets and do some other tricks on R. All right, so let's start. Actually, before we start, you should be able to download and install R Studio. R Studio I've installed on my computer right here. So I showed you in that video how to install R Statistics. R Studio should be very straightforward. So let me know if you have any question on that, but that should be very simple. So the difference between both of them, they should have basically almost the same features, but RStudio is a little bit more user friendly. So that's why you're going to use RStudio. All right, before we start, I have a trick I can show you right here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Windows Plus, you can see the magnifier. And if you press here, you actually can see I just magnify my face from about 22 years ago. So just to show you a cool trick on Windows. Okay, so now I'm just gonna close and that goes back to normal. So let's open the R. So R Studio, once you open it, you can see right here, that's the layout of the program. So a couple of things before we start. The console right here is where every time you run some codes on R Studio, the codes are gonna show again in the console part, and I'll show you that later. But basically, if you have any error with your coding, the error will show up right here, and you can actually search for that error and try to figure out what you did wrong and fix it. So that's very helpful. This part here, you're gonna see our data sets once we start importing, and one of the important parts for this video is also the help center. I'm not gonna be using this, I think, but you might want to check this out later. Once you're using R, you can find a lot of guidance on R coding here, and you can see examples. So that's very, very helpful when you're using the program. So to start, usually I go for a new script. You can also open scripts that you already have on your computer. So open a file, and that you're gonna choose a file that you have. So I'm gonna send you my examples, and you can open them to check it out if you want. But I'm gonna open new script here, and this script show up in the bottom left of the window. So here's where you're gonna enter your codes. So first of all, I'm gonna add a title right here, and I'm just gonna copy so I don't have to write all from scratch. So my title is importing different data sets to R. And you see I added some hashtags on those titles. And in R, when you have hashtag in front of any of the codes that you have, that means that that part's not gonna run once you run the program. So let's see if you're gonna understand that. So let's say I use 4 plus 4 and I run that. You see at the bottom right here, it just gave me the answer. So that's 8. And so one of the things I want to do here is to comment. So once I run this line of code, everything else is going to run. So let's say I use 5 plus 5 and I run it. So to run any line of code, I use control enter to run only that one code that you want. So you can see right here, control enter. And if you run them all, you just you can select them all right here and press Control Enter 2, or you can click right here and they're gonna run all of them. Actually, this one run the previous code. If you wanna run them all, you actually have to select them all to run. So let's say I don't want to run the 4 plus 4. I'm just gonna press, or I'm gonna add a hashtag in front of it, and I select them both and run, and you only see they actually giving me the value 45 plus 5. and the other way around will also be true. So if I select it, both of them, it's only gonna run now the 4 plus 4. Hope that does make sense for you. There's a quicker way to code that, to comment a line, so you don't have to go in front of the line and add it, add the hashtag. You can select both of them and press Ctrl Shift C. That's gonna comment both. Ctrl Shift C, it's gonna uncomment both of them. All right, so I'm just gonna delete this. So we can start with our coding. So first thing I'm gonna show you is how to import data sets and how to import data sets from SAS. So from SAS, or for importing data sets from any other package, you can see right here, you have to install some packages on R to be able to do that. And after that, you have to call them with the library. Because I already installed, I comment this out, so I don't want to run that. So you might have to run this, otherwise you're going to have an error when trying to import data sets from SAS. And why I'm importing data sets from SAS? Because I work mostly with SAS. I work with SAS in a daily, weekly basis for sure, and I love it. But SAS has a little bit other requirements for your computer, so I decided to use R for the class. So R is a little easier for everybody to have access on it. So the first thing I'm going to run is the library for installing the or for importing data sets from SAS. And now I'm going to import data sets, and I'm going to call it data, and I'm going to use read SAS. And here I'm going to paste the SAS data set I want to import. So I have a data set right here. Actually right here. So Ctrl Shift, right click, I copy as path, and I go back to my R program and I paste it right here. And I run. Oh, I have an error, and the error is basically that I have to change. We can go back. Sometimes the errors are not very straightforward, but basically what I have to do is change my back slash to forward slash. So to do that, Ctrl F. I'm gonna search from all of those and replace by forward slash. You can replace one by one or just replace them all, and it shows you how many occurrences you had. And now I'm gonna run that. And you see now I don't have any red messages. It seems everything worked out, and I have my data set right here. If I click it, I can open my data set and you can see it. It has 36 variables, so that means 36 columns and 1,122 rows. So lots of data. Before we go to how to have a little bit of view of this data, I'm just gonna show you how to increase the font size. I think the font size is a little small for the video, so I'm just gonna press Ctrl plus. If you do Ctrl minus, you'll see that's gonna get very smaller. And I think this size maybe is too big. That's good enough. So it's good for you. You can see it pretty easily in the video. So there's a few ways you can look into the data. You just saw the one that I clicked here and you open. You could do view and enter the data name here, which is data, and you run this code. Is also going to open that in a new tab directly. So that's a useful code for our statistics where you don't have the option to click and open the data set. You can also print the data, and when you print, it usually shows you the first 10 rows, and then it also gives a little more details about the other remaining part of the data. And you can also see the structure and the structure of the data set we want. It also show you all the names basically of your of your variables. It shows if it's a numerical variable or if it's a character. So it usually uses text for characters. And we mostly, you can see here, we mostly have numerical variables. So now I'm going to provide you with a few examples for importing data from CSV and Excel files. You might have those data, so you might want to use this. So I only have examples here. So you can see how to do that for Excel and for CSV. What you could also do is import data from a working directory. So instead of copying the whole, you see here I have the whole path for this data set. You can only identify all the folders that you're getting all your data sets. So if you're using only one folder, you can identify that and then only use the short name of the data. So I'm going to identify mine here in session, set working directory, and I'm going to choose R stats. I'm going to open that one. You see the line of code. Actually, if you use this line of code here, it would work as well. So if you copy and paste, it would do same work as doing it by the layout of the program as well. So in our case right now, we're gonna create, I'm gonna import a CSV data set. So data CSV and equals read CSV. And now we're gonna go there on R and I'm gonna copy, or better, I'm just gonna rename this one. So it's easy to copy. Go back there, paste, have to be in between apostrophes, and then enter. So now I have my data CSV here directly from my work directory, which was the folder I selected. Okay, cool. To clean this area, if you want, sometimes it gets too much information here and you want to go back easily and check, just press Ctrl L. All right, so for next one, so we're doing the data cleaning, let's say, or you need to remove some specific variables from your data. So when you open our data CSV right here, if I sort, you can also sort the variables. So I can sort by date, by time, nec tag. And you see when I sort by date and nec tag, you see there's a few, there's one, actually only one line that is missing. So I don't have any information that that's my first observation. And that was done because in the Excel when we collected this data, our first row was left empty. So I want to remove this row, and I want to remove base on my RFID, and I want to remove which is non-applicable. So it was a missing data point right here. So what I'm going to write right here, I'm just going to copy the line of codes I already have, and I'm going to paste. So I'm going to create a data 2 based on my data CSV, and if that row that I have is an A, so non-applicable, I'm gonna remove in case if the data is numerical based on my RFID from the dataset CSV. And the comma here is just to indicate that this is for rows. And when I want to use for columns, I'm gonna use after the comma, so you can actually have different options too. So I run that. You see I created a new data based on the data CSV, and you see there's one last observation only, so one last row. If you open that one, you don't see that row and A anymore on the RFID column. All right, so for next, let's say I want to remove a few birds or specific observations. So let's say my neck tag number 3 is a bird that had some problem and or was a mortality early on, and then I want to remove her data for some specific reason. We can discuss that more when and why I remove specific observations and why we should usually not do that, but in some cases you have to do that. So in this case right here, I want to use the data set number 2 and I want to remove the neck tag number 3. So let's open data set number 2 again and sort by neck tag. So we don't have actually a neck tag number 3 here. Maybe they sorted. Neck tag might be a character in here. So if you go down, scroll down until number 3, you can see, well, we actually have neck tag number 3. We only have one. So let's remove neck tag number 3. Sometimes you have to attach. The attach means that your next command is gonna be based on the data set number 2. And I'm gonna run that. And when you look at the data set number 3, you can see that there's one less observation again, and based on data set number 2, and that basically is where, because we removed the neck tag number 3. So I'm not going to go back into that to check, but sometimes you can go and check specifically if the bird was removed or not. Just you can make sure of that too. You also can choose to remove some columns and rows, and I have some coding for that. I'm going to copy and paste the coding here so you're able to see that. So now I'm going to import a different data set. And I'm going to call that data number 3. So I'm going to override RLS data number 3 here. And I want to show, or I want to see all the columns from the data number 3. And you can see here that you counting starting at 1, you have all the names of those columns. And this is number 7, and then you start again number 8 here, and then you start counting, and then here you start at 15, 22, 29, and 36. And this will be helpful here later, because the example I have right here is that in the data set number 4, based on the number 3 that we just imported, I select the specific names, or I can select the specific columns by their number. So if we select by their names and we run, you see I created data number 4 with 6 variables: neck tag, study number, the week, the fat estimation in grams, the percentage of fat as a percentage of body weight, and one of the treatments we have. And if you open the data set number 4, you see they're all there. And if you run the same coding with numbers right here, so now I override the data set number 4 again, and you see they're exactly the same ones, but this time with number of the columns. And let's say I want to remove columns 1 to 3. So I have data number 3 here: neck tag, RFID, mortality. I want to remove all those 3. Let's say I don't need them. Of course, those are the identification of the birds. I definitely would want to keep one of the 2 at least. So let's say I want to remove number 2 to 4, because I don't need mortality. I don't need the treatment number because I already have treatment identification elsewhere. So I just run, and my data set number 4 now won't have the columns 2 to 4. So 2, 3, and 4. And basically, that's how you remove some of the columns. One thing I haven't shown you is how to save the data set. So if you go and save, is actually show you somewhere to save it. So I'm gonna save, or I already have some imports examples here, but I'm gonna save a new one, R importing and tricks ANSC 471 and save. So you should probably be doing that for every line of code. So if you have any problem with the programming or your computer closing up, you're gonna have that saved. So let's say I want to remove some of the columns, some of the rows now. So if you look at the row names, when you do that, most of your data sets, they should not have a row name. So when you look at, it's gonna tell you the numbers of the rows, and the same number is gonna have the same name. So all names and numbers are the same. And they only print certain numbers, and they reach usually a maximum option. So usually when you want to do the row removal, you usually have to be more specific. So let's say I want to select only the birds that were within 22 weeks of age. So based on our data our data set number 4 here, you can see that we have week and day as age, but I'm gonna choose week, and I'm gonna select only the ones with 22 weeks of age. And then I run, and now my data set, or my data number 5 here, has birds with 22 weeks of age only, and you can check all the way through. So I want to be more specific. For example, here I have study number. So we have different trials going on at the same time, and that's why we give them a number. So some birds, they were from one trial, some birds were from a different trial. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select only birds from trial number 1. So I'm gonna overwrite the data set number 5. So I pasted my coding here. So in addition to 22 weeks of age, I'm gonna use trial number 1 too. So look at the observations we have with the only 22. And now when you run, you see that the number of observations went down to 48. And if you open the data set, you see only study number 1 right here. So you can be more specific when you're doing your analysis. All right. The last thing I want to show you for today is how to create new variables. So let's say right here, what I'm gonna do here, I can show you the coding for that. I'm gonna create a percentage. So I wanna see the percentage of fat. So I have the observations of the fat in grams. So this is fat in grams. And I want to know the percentage based on the body weight. So you can see here I use the body weight information. So I'm going to divide the amount of fat by the body weight in grams. So both of them in grams. And I'm going to multiply that by 100, and that is going to give me the percentage of fat. And I always have to identify the data set I'm taking that from. So I'm using data set number 3 to create a new variable. So you run, you see your new variable right here. So the percentage of fat, but I want to have them together so I can have them all in a data set. So I'm going to combine the data set. So I created this new data set, new data, cbind option that's going to combine the data set number 3. So the one I actually extracted the information of fat in grams and body weight in grams. And I'm gonna add the variable percentage of fat to the data set number 3. And then I run that, and I have the new data. And you see the new data has 37 variables, or 37 columns compared to 36 in the data set number 3. So I opened here, and usually when you add a new variable, it's going to show at the end. So you see the percentage of fat right here. Because I've done that before on SAS, you can actually see the percentage of fat right here, P fat, and you see the exactly same number. So if you just as a comparison, so you see 389, 79, 229, actually 239, the same number right here, and you can check them all the way down. All right, I hope you had fun and enjoy.